Hey everyone, it's Tira with Rent Mason Bees. It is almost spring and now is the best time to transition from harmful nesting material to healthy nesting material. Before bees emerge, before blooms, you want to get your habitat set up for your mason bees so that they emerge nice and healthy. When you don't harvest and clean and you leave your nesting material out, that is when they can crawl through predators like the pollen mites are left in the chambers and the bees crawl through and they cling to their back, sprinkle pollen mites all over your yard. Houdini flies on the rise right now. We just got reports that it's also in the East Coast, so it's really important that Pacific Northwest and East Coast, that everywhere we're looking out for Houdini fly. They're really easy to spot. They're these little teeny tiny white maggots that are inside your nesting chambers, and they multiply and emerge in spring with your mason bees. And then you might find chalkbrood. Chalkbrood is a black, your larva will look black because it has ingested a spore, a fungus called chalkbrood, that it essentially dries it from the inside out, and then those spores burst, the bees crawl through it, and again spores are sprinkled all over your garden. So it's really important to harvest and clean and take care of your mason bees. If you have a bee hotel out, the most important steps, as you know if you've been watching the videos, is to put clean nesting material out in spring, which I'm going to teach you right now how to do that, and then remove at the end of spring. They only live 6 to 8 weeks. They don't stay out year round, and then you have to harvest and clean in the fall. So today I want to teach you 2 new ways of rescuing your bees. If you have nesting material you haven't opened yet, you didn't have time, you forgot to do it in the fall, or you're just ready to make that change and use the good, remove the bad, and get rid of the ugly, this is the time to do it right now before spring, before things bloom and before bees emerge. So the first thing I want to teach you is how to pluck out the cocoons in your nesting material that hasn't been opened yet for the fall or wintertime when you typically harvest and clean. So it's okay. It's okay. You can do it now. You're just gonna not do the bee bath. I have that step-by-step video on how to harvest and clean your own mason bees. You're just gonna take out the bee bath step of that video, and you just don't have time because they're gonna emerge when they feel the slightest temperature change. So grab that nesting material, go outside, get a piece of paper or a paper towel, and open up your nesting material. And then I want you to very carefully pluck out the healthy cocoons that you see. In this nesting material, you can see there's pollen mites here. All those little white cells, that's mold, because we don't know how long this nesting block has been out. It was sent back to us. We get a lot of nesting blocks that people are just done. They don't want to deal with their old nesting blocks, and so we get to have them, and then I get to do videos to teach you what to do with them. So you're just going to gently take out those cocoons. Now you might find some bees emerging because it is close to spring, and in this case we did find a couple of little bees. They're totally fine. You can just very gently pick them out with your finger and you can release them into your garden, and they'll find something. So that is one method where you take them out. Now brush them off as best as you can. Brush the cocoons as best as you can, and then what I want you to do is put them in an emergence box. This is what I mean by an emergence box. This is just a Jello box. What I did is I poked a hole on the side, and then you're going to put all those loose cocoons that you just rescued inside the Jello box. Seal it up with some tape, and then you're going to set this on top of your healthy nesting material for them to emerge. They're going to emerge, they're going to mark their scents, and then they're going to go find your healthy nesting material that you've provided to them. And healthy nesting material is anything that you can open and clean in the fall. So you can use reeds that you can cut open and get to the bees. You can use cardboard tubes that have liners that come out that you can open. This is our new bee shield that we just invented. That's actually really cool. It's going to transform the way people are using these cardboard tubes. It seals it tight in the back, and then this can be removed and cleaned. And then stacking trays. These are the healthy material that you want to use. You cannot use bamboo or logs with holes drilled in it, which switches me over to my next way of emerging your bees. So if you have the bamboo or you have the logs with the holes drilled in it, there's a technique that I showed last spring on how you can put all of that bad nesting material into a bin, and then you just open the lid and you release the bees, and then you put the lid back on so they don't go back into that nesting material. You're going to basically move homes. You're going to have your bees move out of old and move in to new. So I'm going to show you that video right now, and then right after that video I have another video that I did where I was doing this technique with old blocks being returned, and every single bee was emerging with pollen mites. It was really sad to see, because it is so simple to take care of your bees. It's very easy to open your nesting material right now, pluck out the cocoons, or harvest and clean in the fall. If you don't want to do that, that's where the rental part comes in. You will just return that nesting material back to us and we will harvest and clean for you. So let me transition. I'm going to show you this video right now, and then please reach out anytime if you have questions at info@rentmasonbees.com. Check out our YouTube channel where I'm doing a ton of videos, and you can always like and subscribe to our newsletter where I handhold throughout the whole season. All right, let's watch this video. Thank you. Happy pollinating. When you're using logs with holes drilled in it or bamboo gets moldy. Logs with holes, again, you can't clean. So we got a couple of blocks back from hosts that want to transition from not the right nesting material to the right nesting material. And so I'm releasing bees. And so you're seeing all the bees buzzing me because I just released them. So I don't know if there's too many left in here, but here's the two new methods. I showed you, and I'll link the video below, the one method where you can lay them flat and sprinkle sawdust or grass seed. The bees will emerge and then it will fill. The second method you can use is you can use a mesh tool bag, and you can simply wrap the not proper nesting material. So if you have bamboo, a cute little bee hotel, or you have a log with holes drilled in it, you can simply just wrap it in the tool and then very gently open them up, let your bees fly out, and then seal it back up again. These bees are buzzing because they want back in, and you don't want them to go back into this bad nesting material because there's predators and stuff that are in here. You're going to want to dispose of this at the end of the season. The second method of releasing bees is just in a clear plastic container. So you can see I have a few bees that are emerging, and again, these little bee hotels are so cute. Aren't they adorable? But they're the wrong nesting material. Look at all the different size holes. It's bamboo. It's super glued to the back of this cute little bee house, and you can't pull these out to clean. So you're going to want to transition from this style to stacking trays or cardboard tubes that you can unravel and roll. Again, here's another cute little bee hotel. Same type of setup with a big bamboo. And then this is a pretty common one that a lot of people use. And some people I've seen transition these where they pull out the bamboo because they're super glued and they fill them back up with the cardboard tubes that you can unravel. This one came back from a host that's never been clean. It's been in their yard for over 4 years, and it's full of spiders and predators and all sorts of nasty things. So I am just releasing the bees from all this not good nesting material, letting them fly, and as you can see, they're everywhere. And then as soon as I release them, I put the lid back on so they can't go back in. So I'll quickly do that. And that's just another method of transitioning from unhealthy nesting material to healthy nesting material. I'll show you this little bee house. Make sure I don't step on any bees. I built this little bee house this year. You're going to want to set up clean nesting material next to where you're releasing your bees so that they can go and find holes that are healthy that you can clean. So I actually built this one this year. This is my new one. I do a lot of pictures, and so I wanted to be at the level where I can sit here and take pictures of bees. But this is what, about 3 feet, 4 feet high. I found an old pot. I filled it with rocks. Went to the hardware store. They gave me a scrap of wood. I just simply nailed our bee house onto the piece of wood, filled the rest with soil, and set up my own little bee house. So when you're releasing bees from the old nesting material, provide the clean, healthy nesting material, and then they'll be off and happy, and then you'll dispose of that old nesting material because it's probably full of houdini fly, chalkbrood, and pollen mites. So millions of bee hotels are sold every year. There's never any instructions on how to care for them, and people have really great intentions of setting out a bee hotel to help their mason bee populations. But if you're not harvesting and cleaning, you're actually going to do more harm, because these are the baby bees that mom laid last season. They're crawling through pollen mites to emerge, sprinkle pollen mites all over your flowers, and then other bees are going to collect them and bring them back. So you can stop that cycle by cleaning and harvesting. You're still going to have pollen mites in your flowers. You're not 100% going to get rid of them. But when you see some of the videos that I do where we open up the nesting chambers and you see the pollen mites inside, it's so easy to open up nesting chambers and remove the pollen mites, the houdini fly, the chalkbrood, all these predators that can really harm our bees. These bees are emerging from this nesting material. I don't know how long these homeowners had these nesting blocks outside. They look amazing. They're all covered with mud plugs. Looks like they're thriving and doing well, but these bees are emerging completely covered in pollen mites. It's really hard and really sad to see because it's so simple to do this step to clean your nesting material so that these bees don't have to crawl through the pollen mites to get out of that nesting chamber, and then they get completely covered in pollen mites. So I'm going to flip this camera around. I'm going to show you my setup and what you can do to transition from old harmful nesting material to new healthy nesting material, stacking trays, cardboard tubes, material that you can open and clean. And I'll transition also, and I'll show you some close-up videos of these bees covered in pollen mites. So come on. All right, so this is my current setup. I am sitting here in the forest because I do not want these bees to go out in my garden. I release really strong, healthy, clean cocoons and clean bees. So I don't want the bees in here to contaminate my flowers in my garden and sprinkle pollen mites where my healthy bees will bring them back. So let me show you what I have going on in here. So these bees, it's a nice sunny day. So these bees are all emerging right now from unhealthy nesting material. And it's nesting material that can't be cleaned. And I'm not sure, like I said, how long these mason bee houses were out, but they were all completely covered with mud plugs. And now the bees are emerging, and I'm opening the lid, I'm letting them fly out, and then I put the lid back on so that they don't reuse this nesting material. And I'll switch over to my macro lens, but you can see these bees are completely covered in pollen mites. And it's just awful. It makes me sick to see, because you guys, it's such an easy, simple step to harvest and clean. If you don't want to harvest and clean, that's where the rental part is. You just send them back to us. We do all the cleaning. But if you have the methods and the capability to open everything up and clean yourself, I'll put links down below on how to do this yourself. But let me transition and show you some of these bees up close. Okay, so this little bee just emerged from the wood block, and you can see they are covered in pollen mites. It's just sad. And then these little bees over here just emerged from the bamboo, and they are also completely covered in pollen mites. So it's really, really easy to take care of these bees if you are hosting them yourself. One, stop using these bamboo cute little bee houses, and then stop using the logs with holes drilled them. Use nesting material that you can open and clean, and put fresh nesting material out at the beginning of every spring. This little bee is crawling out of moldy bamboo covered in pollen mites and getting tangled in little spider webs there. There's another bee covered in pollen mites. Okay, this little bee just emerged from the log with the holes drilled in it, and it's completely covered in pollen mites. And as you've seen with some of our video with them under the microscope, these pollen mites don't go away. They just multiply rapidly, and over time it will cover this bee's body entirely with pollen mites. It's almost already there right now, but you can see how many pollen mites are clinging to the back of this poor little bee. All right, I know some of that footage is hard to see, but I wanted to share with all of you why it's so important to take the critical steps in caring for these bees. I know millions of... I'm going to link a bunch of things down below. I'll put some of my educational YouTube videos, how to harvest and clean, how we harvest and clean for you if you want to go that route. Identify what's inside your nesting block. I'll link a whole bunch of stuff down below. And then yes, please follow our YouTube channel. I'm always posting new videos. Check out our website at rentmasonbees.com, and feel free to reach out to me at any time at info@rentmasonbees.com. All right, please take care of your bees. Happy pollinating. Bye.